Okay, great. So, hello everyone. My name is Margaret. Thank you for joining us for today's OPT workshop. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some expectations we have for this session. Thank you, Tricia. So, the university expects a learning environment built on civility and mutual respect. Any actions taken during this webinar that diverge from this expectation will be dealt with swiftly. This presentation will be recorded and violators of these principles will be identified and referred to the Office of University Community Standards and/or the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity. If found responsible, students can face discipline ranging from a warning to a suspension or expulsion from the university. Facilitating another person's entry into the webinar with the purpose of disruption is also a serious violation of the Code of Student Responsibility. Lastly, before I hand over to Tricia, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box below. But we please ask that you refrain from asking questions until the end of the presentation, and they will be answered on the order in which they're received. So I'd like to hand it over to our presenter, Tricia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tricia. I work in Visa Immigration Services. The caseload that I advise is last names beginning with A, B, C, and D. I hope you are having a great semester so far. I know things are a little bit different. We'll have a new normal now, and I hope everyone is adapting with everything. And just remember that we're here. If you have any questions, you know, we're here to help you. So hope everything is going well, and let's begin our presentation. So today we're talking about optional practical training. So I go right back to the beginning slide, and I start by saying to you guys, optional. In your head, what does the word optional mean? So optional means that it is not mandatory, right? So as an F1 international student, you have a benefit to do what is called optional practical training, which means that you will have to actually put a request in. It's not mandatory. So if you don't ask us for the I-20 recommending this F1 benefit, it's not going to happen. So just put it in your head that this is optional. It's not mandatory. So you can choose to do it or choose not to do it. But obviously, most students choose to do it because it gives an opportunity to work. So now let's describe a little bit about what employment is. So employment is any type of work or services that you do in exchange for something else. So you do something, you get tuition. You do something, you get books or room or food or some kind of benefit. It's something you do and you get something in exchange for it. So that's the definition of what employment is. Now, employment can be paid, it can be unpaid, right? And that this is employment in general. All off-campus employment can be paid or it can be unpaid, and anything that you do off-campus requires approval. You cannot engage in any work until you have been given the authorization to do so. That authorization comes in the form of an I-20 or an employment authorization document, which we shorten and call your EAD card, which comes from USCIS. Okay, and you have to, you may request to work as a volunteer, and that can be paid or unpaid, but it's very tricky because a true volunteer position, right, it cannot violate any labor laws. So we're gonna get down into that a little bit more into the presentation. But remember that anything that you do off campus requires authorization before you can do it. So you must be authorized before you start that employment. So again, we're talking about optional practical training, OPT. So this is a benefit for you as an F1 international student. It starts off with VIS issuing you a Form I-20 recommending the benefit. Okay, so you can't just apply for it. We have to recommend the benefit on your Form I-20, and you will send the Form I-20 along with other supporting documents to USCIS to approve it. Okay, so remember, it starts with our office, VIS, issuing you an I-20 recommending the benefit. And OPT is for 12 months, okay? It's 12 months in a job that is directly related to your major area of study, okay? So put all of that in mind. So there are different types of OPT. There's pre-completion, that is before you graduate. There is post-completion, which is after you have completed all your course requirements. That means after you graduate. Or it's the STEM extension. And a STEM extension is an extension of OPT. So you have to have OPT first. And then if you're eligible for the STEM, which is you have a degree in science, technology, engineering, or math, you've already applied for post-completion OPT, and then you're applying for the extension of that. Okay, so that is an additional 24 months on top of your OPT. Today, we're gonna be talking mostly today about post-completion OPT. Okay, so post-completion OPT, again, this is an employment authorized after you have successfully completed your major area of study, your academic program at Stony Brook, okay? And so we're gonna shorten your program end date to that particular end of that semester. So for example, if you are a fall graduate, right, your program end date is going to be December 18th, 2020. So we're going to be focusing today on the students graduating this fall, but the formula is that post-completion OPT, you're engaging in employment that is directly related to your major area of study after your program ends. You must be working in a job that is directly related to your major for at least 21 hours or more. So mark that time in your head, right? For immigration purposes, 21 hours or more per week is considered full-time employment. All right, so lucky number 21, you're gonna mark that number in your head. So I have to be in a job, one that is directly related to my major, and I must be working for at least 21 hours or more per week. And OPT is in a job, OPT is just 12 months, and you only get one OPT per higher education level. That simply means you graduated with your bachelor's, you get one OPT. You graduate with a master's degree, you move up to the next level, you get another OPT. But if you do a master's and another master's, you don't get OPT again. It's one OPT per higher education level. And remember, as I said in the other slide, in order for you to have a STEM extension, you must be able to have OPT first, right? Because remember, it's an extension of your OPT. So if you don't have any OPT, you can't extend it. So you must be able to engage in at least that OPT first if you're looking to apply for STEM, if you meet the criteria. So what makes me eligible to apply? So in order to apply, you must be maintaining your F1 status. What does that mean? You've been going to all your classes, you're attending all your classes. Right now, yes, you know, some of you are not doing in person, you're doing it all online. You still have to make sure that you are fulfilling all of your requirements as an F1 international student. So you're, you know, going to school, you're engaging in your classes, you're earning credits at the end of every semester for those classes. You have to have your I-20 for at least one academic year. You've completed everything you need to graduate. you have the correct GPA to graduate, you have no incompletes or no NR grades. So NR means that you don't attend classes. So yes, again, I'm from the spring semester into now, classes have been conducted a little bit differently. So please make sure that you are, logging in when you're supposed to, and doing what you're supposed to fulfill your requirements for each course. So those things you're going to check with your academic advisor. You're going to make sure that you have the right GPA. You're going to make sure that you've completed everything. You check with them, you do a degree audit on your program, and you make sure that you are going to graduate. It's very, very, very important that you do that. And you're going to hear me say this over and over again. All right, make sure that you're going to graduate before you decide to apply for post completion OPT, because remember, post means I'm done, I'm ready, I've finished all my requirements, I have nothing left to do in my program, and I'm going to graduate. Okay. You must have a valid passport. So your passport must be, and valid means it's valid 6 months into the future. So one thing you want to do is look at your passport. Make sure that it's at least 6 months valid into the future, because you may need to renew it before you apply for this benefit. Make sure that you have less than 365 days of full-time CPT. So some of you who have engaged in curricular practical training, if you've exceeded the 12 months, you would not be able to apply for post-completion OPT. So, if you want to make sure of these things before you apply. Also, bear in mind, friends, you do not have to have a job to apply for post-completion OPT. A lot of students tend to get that, kind of in their head, oh, I don't have a job, so I can't apply. You do not have to have a job to apply for post-completion OPT. Okay, so if you are going to apply, don't wait to get a job in order to apply. What you want to do is make sure that you are going to graduate. Make sure you fulfilled all your program requirements, you have the right GPA, etc. And then you decide, you know what, I'm going to apply for this benefit. Okay, you do not have to have a job to apply for this benefit. And for those of you who do have a job, they're not going to expedite the process because you do have one. Because again, when you're applying for post-completion OPT, you do not need to have a job. So let's talk about deadlines and timeframes. And this is where, if you don't already, I need you to take out, a pen and paper and take some notes here, because this formula never ever changes. All right. This is how it is. So again, today I'm going to be using fall dates, right? So this is always the formula, right? So it starts with this issuing a form I-20 to recommend the benefit, right? You cannot apply for this benefit without the form I-20 being issued first. When can you begin to apply? That's always the big question. Our office cannot start issuing those I-20s until 90 days before your program ends, okay? So remember I said earlier on in the slide, if you are a fall graduate, the end of the fall semester is December 18th, 2020. So you want to write that down. The earliest that VIS can begin to issue those I-20s would be September 21st, the week of September 21st, 2020. That's the earliest that we can begin issuing those I-20s. Okay, so that's when we can begin issuing them. All right, so please mark that down. So some people like, oh, can I apply now? You want to wait, until that week to start applying. The earliest we can start issuing those I-20s is September 21st, 2020. Okay. Immigration must receive your application, right, before your 60-day grace period ends, right? So when we issue that I-20, right, I'm sorry. So you have, I'm sorry, let me go back again. We begin issuing it 90 days before your program ends, and it must be receipted um, by within your 60-day grace period, before the end of your 60-day grace period. So that's in terms of applying for OPT. So what this portion is basically saying is there's some students that don't quite know, if they're going to graduate, and they want to wait until, when their grades come in, which is usually a couple weeks after school has ended, after classes have ended December 18th. It's okay to wait until then and be very sure. You have until the end of your grace period. So it basically, immigration has to receipt that application before February 17th, 2021. So that's within the 60-day, where it says USCIS must receive your application within the 60 days. So you can apply 90 days before your program ends, or within 60 days after your program ends. So that's that bullet right there. So processing time. Once you put in your request for post-completion OPT, you're gonna give us up to 7 to 10 business days to issue that I-20, okay? So again, we are not going to begin issuing that I-20 until the week of September 21st, which is within 2-week time period. So I would say if you're applying for post-completion OPT, you can start putting in your request like Friday. September 18th is a good time to put it in. If you do put it in any earlier, remember that even though you're giving us that 10 business day turnaround time to process it, remember we're not going to start issuing OPT I-20s until the week of September 21st. That's when we're going to start issuing it, because that is the formula. Okay? USCIS takes time, right, to process. So it can take up to 5 months for them to tell you if you're approved or not. All right, so you have to give them that time as well. But remember, as long as immigration receipts your application before February 17th, 2021, you're fine. Okay, USCIS, there will not expedite applications. Okay, they actually have on their website expedite reasons, like to expedite applications, and we don't fit into that criteria. So just know that, one, they're not gonna move fast because you have a job, right? And you have to give them that turnaround time. So you're going to log into Access This using full services, put in your net ID and password. You're going to complete, it says, forms within the OPT practical training request, okay? The form is going to ask you to upload the following: your current Form I-20, your passport expiration page, your visa stamp, and if you're an undergrad student, an academic progress review form. And if you're a graduate student, an automatic email goes to the grad department for them to, confirm that you are a candidate to graduate this semester. And then it comes to us, okay? For the undergraduate students, there's an automatic email that is going to go to your major advisor as well, for them to say that you've completed your major academic requirements. All right, so again, you're going to put in the request, right? You're going to upload your I-94, copy of your passport, copy of your visa. If you're an undergraduate student, an automatic email will go to your major academic department to approve, but you're going to have to take the academic progress review form for your academic advisor to complete that and upload it within the request. For graduate students, an automatic email is going to go to your academic department to say that, yes, you're done. Then it will come to us. So please, when you're putting in this request, bear that time frame in mind. Remember that it will not come to us and will not be assigned to an advisor to process, meaning a visa advisor to process for you until the academic department has fulfilled their portion, and then it will come to us. So sometimes you have to follow up with them to make sure that they've approved it, okay? So how do you choose your start date, right? So again, we're gonna write this down, all right? So remember, your program end date, if you're graduating this fall, is December 18th, 2020. Your 60-day grace period is December 19th, 2020 to February 17th, 2021. So please write that range down. That is your 60-day grace period, okay? You're going to use the range of your 60-day grace period to choose your OPT start date, right? So remember, you don't have to have a job to apply for OPT. Students usually, well, what date do I use? We can't tell you what date to choose, right? So again, if you have a job lined up, you might want to choose that date, but you also have to tell that job, you know, it might take USCIS a long time to process my request. So they might have to work with you to change your start date. But regardless of that, the only date you can choose as your OPT start date is any date within that range. So you're using December 19th, 2020 to February 17th, 2021 to choose your OPT start date. If you don't have a job, you might want to use the very last date, you know, which is February 17th, 2021 as your start date to give you enough time after you graduate, you know, to maybe rest up a little bit and try to find a job, or, you know, whatever date you choose. So if you choose, for example, if I choose December 19th, if I choose the right date right after that, then December 18th, 2021 is going to be my end date. So whatever date you choose, then exactly 1 year from that is going to be your OPT end date. Now, please understand, right, that whatever date you have selected, that's it. You're gonna choose that date. That's why you gotta, you know, we have this workshop to explain things to you. You know, after you have chosen that date and then you send your application into USCIS, there's no changes that we can make after that. Okay, so please be mindful of the date you've requested, right? And USCIS may change that date. It's up to them to give you that date, or they may give you another date depending on when they processed your application. But it always starts with us recommending the benefit and you using that range to choose your start date. There's no other range that you can use. All right, so that is the formula. This is just breaking it down based on what I just said. So if we use this little graph right here, so it starts here. It says 90 days before your program ends, we begin. So that we're gonna start, if you want to use a date, I'm sorry, not USCIS, VIS, our office is gonna start issuing those I-20s the week of September 21st, 2020, okay? Now, your program end date is December 18th, 2020, okay? So the range that you're going to use to choose your OPT start date is December 19th, 2020 to to February 17th, 2021, okay? And whatever date you choose, then a year from that would be your OPT start date, all right? And then you get another 60-day grace period after you get your EAD card, all right? So that's basically what this little graph is saying. Down here, it says your I-20 program end date will be shortened to the last date of the semester. So if you look at your I-20 right now, again, some of your I-20s are dated into the future. Some of them have already been shortened. So for those of you who have applied for part-time enrollment, your I-20 has already been shortened to December 18th, 2020. Some of you, we haven't shortened it as yet. So again, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're going to graduate this semester. So you're going to check with your academic advisor. You're going to make sure you have the correct GPA. You know, you're unscheduled to graduate, right? Because guess what? When we shorten your I-20, it's not December 18th yet. You don't know if you're going to successfully end. So you have to be sure before you put this in that you are going to graduate this semester. All right, so make sure. And then once you do that, we're going to shorten your I-20 to December 18th because you're done. You said, you know what, I'm done. I'm really, really done on December 18th. So preparing and submitting the I-765. So if you're ready to request the OPT, you're going to log in to Access this and you're going to fill out that request, the OPT request. Note that there will be $100 international student fee charged to your Solar account. And you're like, well, why? Remember that OPT is a benefit for F1 students. Your status does not change when you're on OPT. You're still an F1 international student. So your I-20 is still housed, right, at Stony Brook. And so we, the immigration advisor, we're still making updates to your record. We're still, we're still in charge of your record. So this is for the services that we continue to provide for you while you're on OPT, right? So you're gonna attend an application review session and it's strongly recommended. So obviously because of COVID, the application review session is going to be like this. It's going to be an advisor on the screen, going through screen by screen by screen, kind of just going through with you, what you need to do to review, your application review. So you're just gonna make sure you have all your required documents when you're ready. Don't go on the application review session until the OPT I-20 has been issued to you because you're gonna be doing yourself a disservice that way, right? Due to COVID, the I-20 is going to come to you electronically. All right, so we're gonna send you all the material. You're gonna send your I-20 electronically. We're gonna send a cover sheet to you electronically, and we're gonna send you, again, everything you need to prepare electronically. So once you finish and we approve your request, you're not coming into the office to pick up anything. So for those of you who are, somewhere in another state, etc., it's fine. Hopefully everyone on this presentation is in the US. Please note that you cannot be outside the United States to apply for post-completion OPT. It's a benefit that you have to be within the United States to apply for. So please make sure if you are planning to apply for OPT and you're currently not in the United States of America, you have to make sure that you get here before the semester ends. You cannot come here after and apply for OPT because you will be in your grace period and you cannot apply for OPT then. So be very, very mindful of that because I know because of COVID, some of you are not necessarily on campus or near campus, but as long as you're in the United States, you can apply for OPT. If you're not, you cannot. So if you plan to, please make your way back to the United States before the semester ends on December 18th. And try not to come on the 18th. Try to come, at least a month before that so you're good to go. So yes, so we're sending you everything electronically and our application review session will be done electronically as well. You might want to take a screenshot of this, but this PowerPoint is also available on our website as well. But these are the documents that you're going to prepare. All right, so once we issue the I-20 recommending OPT, you will get an email, right, of these documents that you need to prepare. So there's a form I-765 that you'll get from the USCIS website. There is the G1145 form that's also on the USCIS website. Now, where it says copies of all Form I-20s, so this is where you want to make sure, you know, you have every single I-20 ever issued to you. So you're going to contact, if you're not sure, you contact your individual advisor. Don't just go on the VIS page and just say, oh, I need my I-20s. Look at who your individual advisor is, because you might want to make, they may need to make an individual appointment with you to go through that. So, you know, some of you may have over 20 I-20s and you're like, hey, you know, I just want to double check. You need every Form I-20 ever issued to you from your step foot in the United States for this application. So make sure that you have that. So only your VIS advisor would be able to help you with that. You need 2 passport style photos taken within the last 30 days. So this is something that you can start to get as well. Please don't use an old photo from your country. They will know, or a photo taken last year. So you might want to go to like a CVS, a Walgreens, you know, anywhere that takes passport photos and get those taken. You need a money order because you cannot send cash, right? So we strongly recommend money order or a certified check, so you can go to your bank to get that. For those of you who are on campus and have an account on campus, you can go to that bank and get yourself a money order, because that's guarantee money. So make sure that you have that ready in the amount of $410 US made out to US Department of Homeland Security. You're going to need a copy of your passport. Remember, it must be 6 months valid into the future. Copy of your most recent admission stamp to the US, copy of your electronic copy of your I-94. And if you have had previous EAD cards you want to use, you want a copy of that. Make sure that your copies are legible. Make sure that they're clean and clear and crisp. If you cannot make out those copies, they can't make them out either. So you want to make sure that everything looks really, really nice and clean and crisp and ready to go. Okay, so remember, you need to have photocopies, right? So when you're sending all your I-20s, you're sending a copy. You're not sending the original. All right, the only original documents going with this application is the Form I-765 and the G1145. Everything else is a clear, clean photocopy of every I-20 ever issued to you, your passport, visa, I-94, and if you have previously issued EAD cards. When we issue that I-20 recommending OPT, USCIS must receive that within 30 days of us issuing that I-20. Okay, and again, we will send you an email once we approve your request with this detail as well, but it's good to have this get that ready in the meantime. So USCIS, their approval period, it can take 3 to 5 months for them to send you your EAD card, to approve everything. Okay, when you get your, you'll get a receipt notice, you'll get an approval notice, right? And remember, then you'll get your EAD card. And remember, I said the dates on your card may be different from the dates that you have chosen. Remember, we are recommending your dates, and then it's up to USCIS to give you those dates. So this is why you cannot work until you get the card and until the date that is listed on your card. This includes any type of volunteering, training, internship, observation, or even orientation. Until you're authorized, and your EAD card is what gives you the authorization, and you have to look on that date, okay? The job must be directly related to your major, and you're working for at least 21 hours per more. That's it. That's the number to remember. Lucky number 21. All right. Your unemployment period. So that starts as of the start date listed on your EAD card. Okay. So the 90 days of unemployment is as of the start date listed on your EAD card. So if you have not found a job or have not reported your job, you know, as of the date listed on your EAD card, you start to accumulate what is called unemployment. And for OPT, they give you 90 days to be unemployed as of the start date listed on your card. So you want to make sure that you're reporting, okay? Remember that you cannot report a job that you're working for 20 hours. You must be working for 21 hours or more. If you get a job and you're only working 20 hours, you're considered unemployed, because on OPT, you must be working full-time. Full-time hours is 21 hours or more, okay? If for some reason you're not employed and you exceed the 90 days, your record is going to be automatically terminated by SEVP. All right, so you want to make sure that you secure that job and you report it. Not that you just secure it, you have to report it. Remember, you're still an F1 international student. You're reporting to us on Access Vis, right, that you have a job. All right, so if you don't report it, you're going to be auto-terminated. That's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's just how it is, unfortunately. They automatically terminate you. Please make sure that you keep documentation of your job and your title, you know, your supervisor contact information, pay stubs, W-2, tax returns, etc. So what jobs can I get while I'm on OPT? So you can work for multiple employers to get to that 21 hours, you know, as long as all employers are directly related to your major, you can have more than one. You know, for those students who are music students, or in, you know, the arts, they might need to do, you know, short-term multiple employers, but remember, for that week, 21 hours or more. You can work for hire, right? So this is you're on a contract basis with an employer, right? And if you are, you have to prepare to show evidence of the duration of that contract. Self-employed, so some of you might want to start your own business. You know, you have to prove that you have the proper business license. So you'd have to go through the Department of Labor and make sure that you have the proper business license, and the job must be directly related to your degree program. Again, sometimes you want to use a company to help you find a job, right? So you might want to, you know, use an agency. That's fine as well. But again, you must be working in a job directly related to your major for at least 21 hours or more per week. And then you said, can I volunteer? Well, volunteer is a little bit of a gray area, right? You have to look at volunteerism as this, right? If you're in a job, both of us are in a job, we're doing the exact same thing. I'm getting paid for that job, but you are not getting paid for it. That is not a true volunteer position. All right. So if you do decide you're going to volunteer while you're on OPT, you're going to have to make sure that you can prove, where does this practice not violate labor laws? That means that someone is working there, getting paid, and you're not getting paid, and you're working for the same company. You have to be able to provide that evidence, okay? So make sure that you understand, like a true volunteer position. I always put in the head of everyone, like if you soup kitchen all over the world, people just go in there. That's a true volunteer position. Nobody ever gets paid to go in there and serve people. That's a true volunteer position. So when you know, people say to you, oh yeah, you can come and volunteer, be very mindful that if you're going to report that, right, that you're able to state how it doesn't violate labor laws, okay? Volunteering at Stony Brook. Now, oftentimes, you know, some of you may be working in a lab or working with your PI or your supervisor, etc., and they may say, hey, you know, Trisha, come on down and volunteer. And you're like, yay, I'm so excited because now I have a job, you know, and I can report that so I don't accumulate unemployment. Please note that permission cannot come from your professor. The chair or the dean of that department has to issue a letter on letterhead, right? Your specific duties, your dates of employment, your number of hours, where you will be working, and the name of your supervisor. So that letter has to be signed by the dean, not your professor, unless your professor is the dean or the chair of that department. So be very, very mindful of that. So to report while you're on OPT, right? And even now, any changes, anytime you change your name, your address, etc., you're supposed to report that within 10 days. So once you're approved, once you get your receipt notice, once you get your EAD card, you're going to log into Access This and you're going to report that within 10 days. Okay? You always have to report. If you change your address, you're logging into Solar and reporting that. Okay, so even now, if you have an address change that you haven't reported, because again, some of you are not in the Stony Brook area because you're now, you know, somewhere else in the US, which is fine. You make sure that you're reporting your address because you're supposed to report that change within 10 days and you're logging into Solar to do so. The following things will cancel your OPT. So remember, when you're on post-completion OPT, that means you finish all your academic program and all you're doing now is just concentrating on work. So if you decide you're going to start a new degree program, transfer to another institution, change your status or end your status, if you enter the United States using another visa other than F1, if you violate your F1 status, if you're unemployed for more than 90 days, or if you fail to complete your program by the date listed on your I-20, all of these can cancel or invalidate your OPT. All right, so please bear that in mind. So again, you know, you see the nice graduation cap here, but look, please, before you apply for post-completion OPT, make sure that you are a candidate to graduate this fall, December 18th, 2020. Okay, remember that grades are not usually posted at the end date of the semesters, they're posted after. So only you know how you're doing in a class and if you're going to successfully complete that class or not. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are a candidate to graduate, because if you do not graduate, you're in a little bit of a pickle, right? If you're supposed to graduate and we shorten your program and you didn't graduate, then you kind of violated your status, right? You said you're going to graduate December 18th and you're like, oh man, my I-20 is shortened to December 18th and now it's December 30th and I just found out I'm not going to graduate. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do for you at that time because your program was already shortened. And if you already submitted your application to USCIS for OPT, you're going to have to cancel that. All right. So if you're having doubts, right, about passing a course, you want to, one, speak to your academic advisor first to see, and your professors, how am I doing? And obviously school just started, so it's a little bit early to make that determination. A lot of students get antsy and you know, eager is the word, because, oh my God, the processing time, and am I gonna get my EAD card on time? It's better to get eager about knowing that you're gonna graduate than to start this whole process and get yourself in what we call a pickle, because it's really not a good one. When you violate your status, that means that you have no more valid status in the United States, and all of these benefits that you have will no longer be available to you. So make sure you're gonna complete your program. So travel, well, you know, now with COVID, travel is just really, really crazy. So if you're already in the United States, we don't recommend that you depart once you apply for OPT. It's, I mean, if you have to, you have to, but it's a risk to apply for this benefit and then depart and you haven't been approved. Okay, so it's we put here whether your EAD card has been approved or whether it's pending, it's a risk, right? So we recommend that if you're deciding to travel, that you have your EAD card, you have secured an employer so that when you're coming back to something. All right. When you're coming back into the US, you have to show, that you have a valid I-20, that you have your EAD card, and you have an employer. So if you don't have that, you're running a risk. All right. And, you can't receive an EAD card while you're outside of the US as well. Remember, it's a benefit that you apply for here. Also, once you depart and you're planning to return, it's always at the discretion of Customs Border Patrol to allow re-entry into the US. And then of course, with the whole COVID, you have to check to see if, their, borders are shut down, etc. So, it's a little bit of a risk to travel. So we're not getting into too much of the STEM, we just touch on it a little bit. So if you have a degree in science, technology, engineering, or math, you're eligible for what is called a STEM extension. So it's an extension of your OPT. When you apply for the STEM, you have to have completed your degree, you have to have a job, and the employer must be e-verified, and you must be working full-time. They have to fill out what's called a Form I-983, and it's a training plan, right? And you have to apply for the STEM 90 days before your OPT ends. So you have to apply for it before your OPT ends, because remember, it is an extension of your OPT. So you have to have that. And once you apply for the extension and you get the receipt notice, you can continue to work for your employer for 180 days or more. For at least 180 days until your EAD card comes for the STEM extension. All right, so we don't go into too much of it now because we know everyone is here mostly for OPT, but that's just to note that when you get to this point, you have to apply for it before your OPT ends, and you have to have an employer, and the employer must be e-verified, okay? So a little bit more technical. Or that you are filing taxes. So, next year, hopefully you file this year. There were, extensions to file. I don't know if there's still an extension out there if you haven't filed. And make sure that you file every year. So next year, make sure that you file because you're supposed to. Whether you've earned income or not, you're supposed to be filing taxes every year. Our office doesn't help you with the tax filing. We do sometimes offer workshops. Once that is available, you can check on our website to see if there's any workshops coming around for that. But that's as much as we do, because we don't actually do it in the office itself. In terms of health insurance, make sure that you always have health insurance, because you are an F1 international student and you are still considered a Stony Brook student. You can continue to take Stony Brook's health insurance while you're on OPT. You just have to contact them and work that out with them in that particular office, because obviously when you get a job, your employer may offer you benefits, etc. So just make sure that you have insurance, because it's very, very, very expensive in this country if you don't have health insurance. So you can continue to take Stony Brook's insurance, or you can choose to take your employer's insurance. So this is just a quick recap, and then I'll take any questions that you might have. So you're going to, first it says request OPT, but before you request, you're going to make sure you are going to graduate. Make sure you are going to graduate this semester, okay? Make sure. Once you're absolutely sure, you're gonna log into Access This, you're gonna put the request in. An automatic email is going to go to the department. If for the undergrads, for the major advisor, for the graduates, it's gonna go to your academic department, right? Then it's going to come to us. You give us time to process that. Once we process it, we're going to electronically send you your I-20. So you're going to download it yourself and print it out and make a copy for the to send to USCIS. Okay, then we're going to also, we have virtual application review sessions. So the first application review session is going to be on September 23rd at 7 p.m. Okay, so that's the first application review session. It is best that you have already applied and received your I-20 by then. And then apply, because it will make more sense to you to attend that session. We have another session December 13th, but we also send you a copy of that PowerPoint when we approve your I-20. So it's not that, you know, you have to wait if you're eager, but it's better that, you know, if you have questions, at least make sure, you know, you speak with your immigration advisor. Now, we're not able to make an appointment and go through with you tooth and nail everything, but after you review it, if you have specific questions, then we'll help you. But the PowerPoint for the review session is very detailed, and you just have to just go through it slide by slide and you should be fine. Step 3, you're gonna mail your I-20 and all the required documents to USCIS within 30 days of us issuing you that I-20. And then once you get your receipt notice, your approval notice, your EAD card, you're gonna report and access this, okay? Remember that the earliest that we can start issuing that I-20 is going to be December 21st. You're going to use your 60-day grace period to choose your OPT start date. That grace period is December 19th, 2020 to February 17th, 2021. So you're going to use that range to pick your OPT start date. Once you pick the date, a year from that will be your end date. And make sure that you're comfortable with that, because once you've chosen your date, then it's very difficult to change it after you've submitted your request to USCIS. Immigration must receipt all OPT applications before February 17th, 2021. Okay, as long as they've received it, as long as they receipt it by February 17th, 2021, then you're okay to remain within the US while you wait for them to send your approval. You do not have to have a job to apply for post-completion OPT. All right. You cannot work until you get your card, until the start date listed on your card. Once you get your EAD card, from the date listed on your EAD card, you have 90 days to be unemployed. You must be working in a job that is directly related to your major for at least 21 days or more. And remember, once you apply for this benefit, we're shortening your I-20 program end date to December 18, 2020. So if you do not graduate then, you're going to be in violation of your F1 status. All right, so this is a list here of your immigration advisors. So one of the things, again, that you might want to reach out to them for is to make sure that you have a copy of every I-20 ever issued to you. So make sure that you contact your immigration advisor regarding that. Okay, so now, do you have any specific questions that I can answer? I guess, Margaret, you can ask me the questions.
Yes, thank you, Trisha.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to begin reading the questions from the Q&A box below, and they'll be answered live. First question we have is a student asking, my I-20 will expire on December 18th, 2020, and I plan to apply for OPT this September. What if I don't receive my EAD card before December 18th?
So again, in the presentation, and that's why we always say wait until the end to ask those questions, right? So I think I already answered it, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it specifically, okay? The processing time, you have to give USCIS that processing time. So as long as they receive your application before February 17th, 2021, you're okay to remain in the United States until you get your card. Okay, so the dates on your card may be different from the date you have chosen. All right.
Thank you. So another question regarding the dates is VIS issuing I-20 recommendation the same date as application received by USCIS?
We issue an I-20 recommending your employment date. You're using your 60-day grace period to choose your employment start date, and a year from that is your employment end date. When USCIS gets your application, they stamp it a receipt date, and then when they approve it based on when your date is that you have chosen, they might give you that date, or they might give you a different date depending on when they receive your application.
Thank you. For students requesting an SSN, Social Security number, with their OPT application, how delayed will the SSN be received?
Usually, once you get your OPT, then within 2 to 4 weeks, you should get the SSN number after that. But if not, then we give you a document explaining that you can go and apply it for yourself.
All right. Can we change the OPT start dates if we haven't sent the documents to USCIS, but have only received the I-20 from VIS?
It depends. It's very difficult to change it after. So that's why you have to know what you're doing before you submit it, because it depends. I can't tell you yes or no. It depends on the situation when you submit that. But usually if you haven't submitted the documents, it's easier to change it then. But it's very, I can't tell you yes, because it depends on when you do that. Because if you're outside of the range, you know, when you do it, or there's a specific situation, you know, there's a possibility that we may not be able to do any changes. Okay.
All right. So we have two questions regarding the I-20. So will USCIS accept a printout of the electronic I-20, or will they require a wet signature on the I-20? So the original.
USCIS requires copies of every I-20 ever issued to you. They never ever have required an original I-20. Okay, so you're sending photocopies of every I-20 ever issued to you. We have been given, based on COVID, permission to be sending students electronic copies of I-20. That's not coming from Stony Brook. That's coming from immigration, giving us that authorization to issue electronic I-20s. But regardless of that, when you send in an I-20 to USCIS for this particular application, they require a copy of the I-20, not the original, because they don't give you back your I-20s. So that's why they tell you copies of every I-20. The original wet signature should be on the form I-765. That's where that needs to be an original, not a digital, not an electronic. You print that form out and you sign it, and that should have a wet signature.
Great, thank you. Next question we have is, do we get additional 90 days of unemployment in the case of a STEM extension?
So for a STEM extension, remember it's an extension of OPT. So you basically get 150 days aggregate for OPT as well as STEM. So it's 90 days of unemployment for STEM, for OPT, and an additional 60 while you're on STEM. So if you didn't use any for OPT, you carry it over for the STEM, because remember, it is an extension of OPT.
In addition to that question, we have another STEM OPT question. Does STEM OPT extension require employer sponsorship?
I don't understand what that means, employer sponsorship. You
All right.
have to have a job when you have to have a job when you apply for OPT. I'm sorry, let me start again. You have to have a job when you apply for the STEM extension, and the job, you have to be working at least 21 hours per more for a job that's e-verified. So if you're saying sponsorship, I'm not sure what you mean by sponsorship. I just know that you have to fill out a form I-983. Your employer has to fill that out, specifying what you're doing there, etc. And you have to be working in a paid job. Like there's no volunteering or anything. So your employer must be e-verified. They have to fill out the form I-983 form, and you know, you must be working in a job. You know, no volunteering.
Okay, and this next question, I believe is already answered, but
Right.
just in case there's any, the student asks, mail to USCIS can be done electronically or it has to be a physical copy. I'm
Yeah,
assuming you guys
there's
got all the documents.
yeah, everything is done via mail. There's no electronic anything. The only thing that they have, yeah, they're everything you're mailing to USCIS. You're mailing everything to USCIS.
Okay, next question. The review session for the OPT application review is on the 23rd of September, and we can only begin applying for a new I-20 on the 21st of September. So we can't actually attend the review session.
So again, when you apply for OPT, the same PowerPoint that we use in the review session will be mailed to you, and will be emailed to you. It's also available on our website. So it's not that you have to sit and wait. It's just that there will be a VIS advisor doing that presentation. So again, you know, hopefully some of you will have your I-20s by then. Maybe our office can try to schedule in another virtual session, but even if we cannot, a very detailed PowerPoint is going to be emailed to you when we approve your, when we issue the I-20 recommending OPT. When I say detailed, it's detailed. It's really just us reading through it along with you when we do the presentation. So it's not like you have to like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything. You can actually go ahead and use that and then ask specific questions. So again, the formula is we cannot start issuing that I-20 until September 21st, because if we do, you're going to be denied, because this is the formula from immigration. It's not a formula that we made up. You can start putting in those requests, you know, I would say like from the 16th or Thursday the 17th, so that I guess we can queue it up and issue them in the order in which we got them. Remember that an email goes to your advisor first to approve it. But you know, this is the time when everybody starts getting eager because they're like, oh, hers got issued and mine didn't get issued and this. And it's not a matter of who gets issued first and whatnot. It's really a matter of, please make sure you're going to graduate and just relax and everything is going to be fine. Because unfortunately, you could be the first one to apply and the first one to get it in there. And someone who applies in October, which they're still in good time, or they apply for November, which they're still in good time, or you apply in December, you're still in good time. Remember, immigration has to get your application and receipt it by February 17th, 2021. Okay, as long as they receipt it by then, you are okay to remain in the US until they get your application. This is where, and we find it happen every semester. Everybody's like, oh, I'm getting eager to get to be the first one in and the first one out. Usually those people are the ones that do things wrong. You know, they send in things, they forgot to sign everything. Remember, okay, and I think I'm answering the next question, okay? So remember that as you put everything in.
Yeah, so the next question asks if the EID card is received after February 17th due to processing delays, is unemployment days lost?
It cannot be received after February 17th. They have to receipt, and this is just gonna answer that question, and there's nothing else after that. They have to. So we're telling you and we're talking to you about it now. It's in our PowerPoint, it's in our slides. they must receipt it before your 60-day grace period. If not, you're out of status. Okay, there's nothing that we can do at that point. They must receipt your application. This is giving you ample time to get it in there before February 17th, 2021. They can't receive it after. You have to depart the US if you don't have a receipt in your hand before that date, you're out of status.
Now, if USCIS receives the application before the February 17th deadline, but the student's EID card is sent after that date, what happens to their unemployment days?
So your unemployment days starts as of the start date listed on your card. So whatever they put on the card, that's when it starts. Okay, so we don't know. It depends sometimes based on when they process it. That's why, again, in the presentation, and you guys must listen very carefully, okay? The days that they choose may be different from the day you have chosen. That's why it's called recommending, right? So we recommend those dates, and sometimes they change it. So based on when you applied and based on what they give you on the EAD card, that's when your unemployment period starts. It starts as of the start date on your card.
Okay, thank you. We have a student asking, in what situation would a visa stamp not be applicable to a student?
A visa stamp? I'm not understanding that question.
I believe, and maybe in our PowerPoints, you might say that a visa stamp is required, except if it's not applicable to students.
Oh, okay. That's for Canadians. Like, Canadians don't require a visa. So if you're from Canada, Canadians don't have to use a visa, to apply for a visa. They just, Canadians use their I-20 and their passport to get into the US.
Thank you. Next question we have is, if I've missed the tax deadline, can I combine a tax return next year, and will it affect my OPT application?
So in all tax questions have to be directed to a tax expert. So you can, find a tax expert, not a VIS expert. Again, we're not the specialists in taxes. So you're going to speak to a tax expert about all tax questions.
I just like to add on to that, on our on the VIF's website, under, I believe it's called like Campus Life or something like that.
Yeah.
We have tax information and contact information for Sprint Tax. So you can refer to them for tax questions. Yeah. For re-entering the United States, after we have received the EID card, are we supposed to come back before the OPT start date we mentioned, or coming back before the job start date works?
Once you apply, you determine when you're coming back, because as long as you applied for the benefit and you have your EAD card, then your I-20 would state that you're still valid, right? So you're going to determine when you're coming back. When you come back, you have to have a valid I-20, right? Because it will have your OPT information on the I-20 itself, right? So once your program ends and you apply for the benefit, that information will still be on your I-20. So you determine when you're coming back, even if it's before the job, while the job is in session. You just can't do it within the 60-day grace period after the job ends, unless you applied for now STEM or for a different status to return. That's why an updated I-20 is very important, especially when traveling.
Thank you. We have 2 other travel-related questions. So you basically just covered it, but just to confirm, a student's asking, can I go to my home country after applying for OPT and give my relative's mailing address to receive the EAD card?
On the form, form I-765, it has 2 options. It has an option to give your physical address or a mailing address. Okay, so you're going to determine what address is your mailing address, and all information from USCIS is going to go to the mailing address. Again, we do not recommend that you depart the United States without having your EAD card and your employer to return. You cannot depend on now that person sending you that in the mail, because that might get lost internationally. So make sure that you have everything in hand when ready to return to the United States.
All right. So a student asked about the contact information on the slides that are currently live right now versus the contact information that's in the slides on our website. So just for clarification, this contact information that you're currently seeing on your screen is the most up to date, as well as the contact information under the Contact Us page on the VIS website. The slides on the VIS website must be updated to reflect this current information. So these advisors that you're seeing now and their caseloads based off your last name is who you will be contacting. And the slides on the website will be updated.
Yeah, it's always best for you to look at, as Margaret said, it's always best for you to look for contact information under our website and not our slides, because slides have to get updated, but the website is always updated on a more frequent basis.
Yes, exactly. All right, any more questions? We'll give you a few more moments. All right, there aren't any more questions coming in, so this will be the conclusion of our OPT workshop. Trisha, do you want to close us out with any?
Have a great semester, everyone. And again, my advice to you is, again, make sure you're going to graduate before you apply for this benefit. And have a great, wonderful semester. Stay safe. And remember, we're here. If you need us, just contact your individual advisor directly for any questions you have, specific questions that you would have. All right, so have a great semester and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.